To begin making your bow, you will need a wired edge ribbon of your choice and pattern, twist ties or floral wire, a tape measure, a chenille stem, or we call it a pipe cleaner, and a good pair of scissors for cutting fabric. And as a side note, if this is the first time you'll be making a bow, I suggest you start off with wired ribbon. Wired ribbon is easy to use and manipulate and much more forgiving than your traditional non-wired ribbon like a satin or a silk. Those ribbons tend to wrinkle more and show more of your mistakes. Okay, so to get started, you're going to just carefully open your ribbon, making sure not to cut your ribbon. Next, you're going to decide how long you want your bow tails to be. You are going to start by just creating one bow tail, and if you're not sure where to start somewhere between 12 and 14 inches. This makes a good size bow. And to make your first loop, you're going to start off by bunching in the middle and creating that first loop. Bring the back of the ribbon to the front and making sure they're even. I call this bunching. You always want to bunch the ribbon together in the middle. And it's always good to measure your bow loop just to make sure it's the size that you want. Okay, pay attention to this next step because it's mega important. Now that you made your first loop, you're actually going to twist the excess ribbon towards your body. This keeps the decorated side of the ribbon facing forward. Then you can go ahead and make your second loop on the opposite side. Go ahead and bunch in the back like we did before, and then measure your loops to make sure that they're the same side so that your bow is symmetrical. You can even double check with the tape measure again to make sure that your bow is the width that you want it to be. If it's too big or too small, you can go back and adjust your bow loops. To make the next loop, we're going to use that same twisting motion again, twisting the ribbon forward, keeping the decorated side facing forward. When you make the next loop, you want to make this loop quite a bit smaller, maybe about 3 inches smaller or half the size of the first loop to add depth to our bow. We want the smaller loops of our bow to be in front of the bigger loops of the bow. So we're going to just pull slightly to bring the small loop in front of the larger loop. To make the corresponding loop on the other side, we're going to use the twisting motion again, this time twisting the ribbon away from us, keeping the decorated side facing forward. And notice how I slightly create the loop in front of the larger loop. We always make our smaller loops in front of larger ones. Then we're going to bunch the ribbon in the middle again, keeping our ribbon loops together. Measure your two smaller loops and make sure they're the same size, and now we can get ready for the next loop. Once again, twisting forward, making our next loop. I'm kind of measuring as I go along here, then bunching in the back and getting ready to make the next loop. So we're repeating the steps for the loop on the corresponding side by twisting, making our next loop. We're measuring to make sure that our bow loops are the same size. We're going to bunch the middle of the bow loops in the middle again to keep the bow loops together. And it's always a good thing to continuously measure your bow loops, making sure that they're the same size with the bow loops on the same side and also bow loops on the corresponding side. This way our bow stays symmetrical all the way around. Now we're going to make our second set of small bow loops. So we do the same procedure by twisting again, measuring, making sure they're the same size, bunching in the back, and maybe measuring one more time. Okay, now it's time to create our center loop. Now to make the center loop, we're not going to twist away like we usually would for an opposite side loop. We're going to actually twist it forward with the non-decorated side facing us. Then we're going to bring that loose ribbon around, curve it around, and create a center loop in the front of the bow. It's going to be a small loop right in the front, in the middle of all of your bow loops. Make sure not to let go of your bow because the whole thing could fall apart and you could start over. So I'll even flip it over on the other side, kind of adjust the bow loop, and then stick my thumb right back in that middle, bunching everything together again and getting ready to continue with the other loops on the other side now. Now we're almost finished with our bow, but it's always good to go back and just adjust things, adjust the ribbon, get out some crinkles. It's kind of easier to do it now than it is to go back and try to fix a mistake later. At this point, we have 3 more loops to go, so we're going to finish the other side of the small loop, twisting forward so that the decorated side is facing us, making our loop, bunching, and measuring. Now we're going to repeat that same process with our last 2 loops. Our last 2 loops are going to be large, just like the first 2 loops were. So we're going to twist forward, make the loop, bunch in the back, measure, and do the same thing with the loop on the other side. Okay, so now it's time to tie your bow together. To do this, you're going to take your twist tie or floral wire and put it right through the center loop of your bow. Bring it around the other side, and then you're going to twist the wire ends together in the back of the bow. Make sure that when you twist those wire ends together that you do it rather tightly because you don't want your bow to fall apart. Try to get as close to that bow as possible with those twist ties or floral wire. Now that your bow is together, let's go ahead and cut the tails. Line your ribbon tails up together, one on top of the other. Make sure they're very straight, otherwise you will end up cutting one tail longer than the other. And then you're just going to simply cut across the bottom of the tails evenly. You may choose to leave your tails just like this, and this is perfectly fine. If you want to fancy your bow, fold the ends of the ribbons in an upward motion and make sure that they're even. Then you're going to take your scissors and cut the tails diagonally. This is going to create a nice kind of a fishtail look to the ends of your ribbon tails. Now you can kind of fluff out your bow, go over any wrinkles, twist your ribbon in different directions so that your bow looks full and fluffy. To get your bow ready to hang, place a chenille stem right in the center loop of the bow, and then just twist the ends of that chenille stem, or pipe cleaner we call it, together in the back. Make sure you don't twist, maybe twist only 2 or 3 times. This way you leave lots of stem left over for hanging. Now your bow is finished and ready to hang. Your bow is easily adaptable to hang on walls or tables, chairs, wedding arches, pews, or anywhere where you want to draw attention. Also, try experimenting with wedding tulle or silk flowers, pearls, even bling or diamonds to add a more dramatic effect or look to your bow. The possibilities are endless and all up to your imagination. And most importantly, don't give up. My first bow turned out absolutely horrible. If you got it right on the first try, you are truly awesome. But if not, if at first you don't succeed, try again. The more you do it, the better you will get each time you make a bow. Thanks for watching and good luck with your bows.